So here he says that it may seem to you that this particular karma is not at all self-enhancing in any way. Okay. Neither ethically nor in terms of your self-growth, it is something which is totally useless because it is going to lead to so much destruction. So here he says, now any karma that you do, I think you all brought it out, which is very important. Okay. When you do that karma, the intentions count. Okay. The huge, how does the law of karma decide what is going to be the result for that given karma? Okay. It not only takes into consideration the action, but also the intention behind the action. Okay. If the same war, if it is fought thinking that I have to take revenge for whatever that I had to go through in my life, okay, or what happened to my wife, or how we have been wronged, or if the battle was fought thinking that, okay, if I win, what? I will have so much prosperity, I will have so much, I'll be a king of a very big kingdom. So same battle could be fought with different intentions. One is what? Just for revenge. Second, what? For one's acquired power and acquire all the riches and everything that goes along with the power. And the third thing is, here he says, he introduces a term called yajna. Yajna is actually it's a kind of a Vedic ritual. He uses this whole Vedic the analogy of a Vedic ritual. Okay. What is the Vedic ritual for? Okay.
Just to invoke the gods to give you attention. So I would say to ask for something that you want, and therefore you sacrifice something. And
okay.
You have to give something, so yes.
Yeah. So generally Vedic ritual, most of it today, it is now, I don't know how it was in the past, but it doesn't require any sacrifice as such. You do a Vedic, it's a fire ritual. Okay? It's a fire ritual unto which you offer, ghee, and you offer all this, some little poha, or some little things you offer. It's not like grains you offer and things like that. Now, what is the purpose of that? Okay? The purpose is to recognize that you are connected with the world. Okay? You don't exist in isolation. Okay? Generally what happens is, what is our whole attitude then when we live? Me against the world. Okay? So I'm kind of almost fighting with, I'm almost in this whole kind of a fighting mode with the world to extract the maximum from the world, what? In the best possible manner.
The least possible expense.
And with the least possible expense. This is how we interact with the world.
It doesn't have to be monetary expense.
No, it doesn't. Everywhere. This is what we call efficiency, right? If you ask somebody in economics or in something, what is efficiency? You get the most, but without spending the least. And this is our whole orientation is. Okay? Now the Vedic ritual makes our psyche totally different. Okay? By recognizing that there are forces which govern my life and I propitiate those forces, what does it do?
It makes
the probability that first it reinforces my psyche's what? This connection with the universe. Please understand, that is the most important thing. You need, it's a very deep kind of a thing. How do you view yourself in the world? Are you an isolated person who is what? Fighting with the world, or what? You are part of one grand design of things, and what you do contributes to that design, and what others do also contributes to that design, and what? Showing your gratitude for those who contribute to that design. The whole Vedic ritual is meant for that. Okay? Recognizes the forces which what? Which empower you to get so many privileges that you have, okay, which are actually not your entitlements, but they are your privileges.
But how does doing the ritual make you in?
Because you are connected. When you say Agnaye Swaha, Indraya Swaha, what? Somaya Swaha, you see
the nature is also involved.
nature is involved, right? I'm saying that the moon, which is so far away, to you, moon, I'm offering. That means I'm connected to you. I recognize all that is brought to me by you.
So it empowers you spiritually.
It empowers you spiritually. It makes you connected with the universe. Okay? So that means you see the way you view the universe, it changes. Because you don't see yourself as an isolated person. It is like, let's see a very simple example. Okay? A simple example of a wire in a car. If the wire sees oneself as just wire and looks at the one big engine and then all these different machineries and all, what would the wire feel? Small, useless, insignificant, right? Jealous, whatever. Then if the wire shifts one's perspective and says, actually there is one car.
The whole circuit is there
Because
because
it's an essential part.
Exactly. The whole system cannot work without me. And the whole system also cannot work without the other parts.
So there's no ego, there's no...
So we should
There's
be
no
a good
personal-
button also.
yeah.
I am controlling
Exactly.
the engine, I am controlling
Excellent.
the speedometer.
Right? Neither you feel that you're totally helpless, nor you think what? That
I
you control
control
everything.
everything.
And this is a fact. This is how things are.
Each one plays his own role.
Each one plays one's own role in order for this whole scheme of things to work. Okay? This is something, it gives you what? A good self-esteem, it gives you a sense of purpose in your life, and at the same time what? Recognize different forces that are there which bless you all the time. Okay? So this is where he says, now don't look at, if you look at only yourself, you will have these two possible responses, which is either I want power or I want to take, yeah. Or in this case for Arjuna, what? Either I want to take revenge or I want all the power and I want to get rich. These are the two perspectives. If you look at yourself in the grand scheme of things, where you are placed as a Kshatriya, okay? And a Kshatriya is not a normal, within a Kshatriya there is a whole range of Kshatriya. Either you can be a very simple soldier or you can be what? A very skilled person. Okay? A skilled person, and you are presented with a situation where what? Somebody who is highly unethical has taken away the kingdom from you, and if you let it go without any resistance, then you let the person who is corrupt into power without any resistance. What happens? How many people, so many lives are involved, it becomes what? Your duty. Okay? So if you see yourself as part of this grand design of things and where you are placed, then this is what we call Swadharma.
This was his role, and he had to
That
do
is
it
his
as-
role, and he has to play that role. Okay? Because each individual is placed differently in this grand scheme of things. I can't do the job that Bela and Suni does because I don't have the skills that she has or she has. Exactly. So that way many times people tell me, oh yeah, we listen to you, we understand, but we can't speak about it. I said, yeah, obviously not, because I have studied for 20 years and with all Sanskrit you can't after, so it's very, very obvious that different people are placed differently and they have to do their job. Okay? So therefore, in addition to this whole dharma, Up to now, we had discussed about Samanya Dharma, the universal ethical meaning. Now we add one more concept, which is Swadharma. Okay? Swadharma is one additional thing, that is playing my role in the grand scheme of things. I have a unique place, I have unique skills, talents, endowments, and I then need to use it in the most prudent manner. That is my responsibility. Okay? Because the universe is designed in a way that no matter how much I give, I always will what? Take more. There is no human being who will give more than what one takes. Okay? So therefore, if I take so much from this whole system, what is my responsibility to give? Okay? Now when I want to give, generally what happens is people become very lofty in their goals, in the thinking. Then what happens? They get disappointed, right? Because my sphere of influence is very small and I want to change the world. I want to change the American foreign policy, and I want to change what Afghanistan does and what Iraq does and how ISIS, I mean, I have this whole big agenda. I have fixed the whole world according to my vision. Okay? And nobody has come to me to ask for my help to give them advice of what they should do. Okay? With this kind of an orientation of changing the world, okay, with this whole very lofty dreams, it gets you nowhere. Okay? So this is where Lord Krishna says, hey, be realistic. When you want to contribute, look at your position in scheme of things. That position in scheme of things may evolve over a period of time, but you have to be realistic about where you are right now and start doing what you have to do. Okay? Every small step that you make will what? Things will evolve. Things will evolve over a period of time in a way that your sphere of influence can increase over a period of time. Okay? So Obama, before he became the President of the United States, what was his sphere of influence? Not much. When he occupies this position as a US President, every decision that he makes has what? Repercussions, huge repercussions throughout the world. Okay? Now after 8 years of presidency, when he becomes a normal citizen again, what? Relatively much less. Okay? But still, a person who still can do many things, right? So that means your sphere of influence is not something which is static. Okay? It is constantly changing, and realistic living is what? Recognizing your sphere of influence and doing what needs to be done. Okay? So in this case, Arjuna was told that your sphere of influence is what? Your role as a Kshatriya. You try to, it is not that recently I got an email, okay, with this Paris bombing, okay, with all these journalists killed. So somebody said that, I have a difficulty in, they said, yeah, there are people who they think that they are right and they are fighting for a cause. Okay, and they are destroying people. How is it different from Gita, where Arjuna was told that his cause was right and then to fight? Okay. Now, what could be the answer? To stop. What could be the answer? How would you answer that question?
They obviously believe that is why so many people have
Yeah,
Look at the
totally
reality
brainwashed
of
from
the
the-
situation and the effect on everybody from the different
Maybe
perspectives.
the
The
perspective that
guided their decision was not
In keeping with
well
reality.
researched or well
Yeah.
balanced.
Excellent. Right? This is really the key, because that's why we give the story of Mahabharata. how many times, what? Recognizing the fact that they were wrong, they let go, they let go, they let
He
go.
tried many times
Many
before
times.
he got to the
Exactly.
war stage. I
Right.
remember you saying.
So there's so many times he tried, then even when there was negotiation, but Krishna said what? We just give us one house with 5 rooms, we'll settle for that. Okay? After so many wrongs, he still wanted to settle for it. When none of it worked, then there was a last resort. Okay? It's not something which is done. And when you declare a war, then what? Each side has a equal chance of what?
Winning or losing.
Yeah, and gathering whatever allies or whatever, Here, when you just go and just bomb people, that is, you can't compare it to this whole view of dharma. Okay, so this is where one has to really, when it comes
the
to
wars also had so many rules and regulations.
Yeah,
back then.
exactly.
After sunset you can't
Sunset
do
you
this,
can't,
after
yeah.
this. You can't just go into the enemy camp and bomb them. They were
Exactly.
very, very
They were-
ethical wars.
Exactly. So even the wars were guided by so many different rules. And then-
and
and
there
the
was
rules
a game
were
of
followed
football
by
or
most.
whatever.
Exactly.
I mean, there were people who did. There was always the bad side which
That's
tried to
but-
bypass those laws.
Exactly. So that means that we cannot just take two very unconnected events, right? And then
Expect to find parallels. in it.
exactly, and expect to find parallels, because that will be, with this kind of a buddhi, you can justify anything,
Yeah, it's dangerous.
It
to
is
do that.
dangerous.
Yeah.
right? And this is where this whole thing is cultivating. You can't just put two seemingly similar situations and make parallels and connections where there are actually, the detail is the huge, totally different. Okay? So this is where one has to be very careful in how one uses one's capacity to analyze. And this is what it says, that this yajna is assessing your position. Who can assess your position?
Only you
Only you
yourself.
can.
Yeah.
Exactly. One has to assess one's position and one has to do what is needed to be done, seeing the fact that you are in what? In one grand scheme of things, you are playing your role. Okay? So here he says, then if you do like that, then ayam karma bandhanaha, then you will be free from this bondage or that responsibility of karma and mukta sangha samacharaha. If you do it with this attitude, then you will be free from this feeling of guilt. Because otherwise, there is this whole big conscience when we feel guilty. If you review the situation in terms of your duties and your responsibilities and how important it is to keep the whole big system going, then you free yourself from what? That person feeling of guilt. So, here he says, एवं प्रवर्तितं चक्रं नानुवर्तयति हयः अघारुरित्यया नामः मूढं पार्थ स जीवति. So, if you have 5 minutes, you have. So, he gives a counter example and he says that the one who does not recognize this chakram, when this chakram is this whole grand system within which they are operating, okay, and the one is only taken by one's indriya. Indriya is what? Your senses. You engage in the world, you already have concluded you are limited, then the senses give you so many different options onto which you attribute what? Your feeling of completion. Then you go for more and more, as Roshni is saying. Okay? If this is your orientation for living in this world, then he says, Mogam Partha Sajivati. The life is a waste. Okay? Because no matter how much you will acquire, and how many people, if your whole purpose is only acquisition, okay, at any cost, how many people you would have harmed? in so many ways, whether emotionally or through an action, how many people you would have harmed. Okay? So that means what are you doing to this whole system? Are you enhancing the system or are you corrupting the system? When you are corrupting the system, what happens? You are part of that system. You get corrupted in the process. Right? You think that you are using the system for your own advantage. What actually happens? You are not
Finally,
only
you
you
are
are
feeding the
exactly. You are feeding what the distortion in the system, and finally it all comes back to you. So you think you are acting in your own self-interest by acquiring more, but what? You are the loser because you are part of that whole system which is getting corrupted, and that corruption will actually come and harm you.
If you are all staying in the lake and you contaminate the lake, finally you have to drink back from that lake.
Exactly. Absolutely. Right? So you think that you don't care. Absolutely. When you just dump and you say, yeah, I don't care. Right? Who cares? Because somebody else will clean it. It's not my problem. But if everybody does it, then what? Everybody will have to drink from the same water. And this is exactly what is happening when we talk about environmental problems. This is exactly what happens. Okay?
In any aspect.
In the industrialist, anything.
It's all coming back.
It all just keeps coming back to us. So this is why when we talk about why the world is, so difficult and so challenging, it is doing of what? Our own doing through our actions. If you want to change the world, what do you do?
Make that one small change which will set it back on the right track.
Exactly. Right? Make that one small change which will contribute towards setting the whole thing right. Because that's the only thing that you can do. You can't do anything more. Okay? So that is, Swadharma is a very important part of Karma Yoga. Okay? So along with Samanya Dharma, it is Swadharma. And the third thing which is very important, that not only you play the roles, Swadharma means I'm connected to the world, I'm connected to different individuals, I play the roles in the most efficient manner, the most responsible manner, okay? But there is another thing is how, again, shifting from being a consumer to a contributor, okay? That is a very big shift, which is what we call Loka Sangraha. So the Vedic Dharma includes Samanya Dharma, which is universal ethical values, Swadharma, which is your particular roles and responsibilities depending upon what is your place in the grand scheme of things and your sphere of influence. And the third is then recognizing the fact that the world is set up in a way that you always will receive a lot more than what you can give. Then what? At least your attempt is to become a contributor. Okay? That is what we call Loka Sangraha. All three
Loka
Sangraha. Okay? All three, when you incorporate in your decision making, what we call is you have used your faculty of free will in the most effective way. Otherwise, you are partially using it, or you are what? Trying to grow, but when you do all three, then you are using your own potential that is endowed to you to the most possible. Okay? And that is what initiates self-growth, which will prepare you for moksha. Because otherwise, everybody has the same question when they listen to Vedanta. Atma is already limitless. Okay? It's already free. It has no boundaries. So what difference does it make what I do or what I don't do? This is a connection. Unless you do live a life of Karma Yoga and what? Realign your whole thinking with what is at a relative level, there is no way you can understand the absolute. There is no way. So this is growth, and it requires years at times, this whole reorientation. And that's why it takes time. That is a connection between this final reality and your day-to-day living, which is what? Life of Karma Yoga. You use karma to undo all these distortions. Because unless you undo these distortions, your buddhi is not cultivated enough to understand the final or hold this final reality. You'll always find a disconnect. From now on, the whole discussion changes. We will see in the next class. Now here it is talking about the whole teaching tradition and how this teaching tradition has continued for what?
Janma.
Janmas, millennials, right? So any guru who thinks that I am the one who is the one just doesn't know anything, right? So this is what that whole teaching tradition and how this knowledge is transferred is mentioned. Within that, there is this whole important aspect of avtara. So that also. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavamahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay. So, the topic was Karma Yoga. And Karma Yoga, we saw that it's a technical term. It has different aspects. So just if you're ethical, it's not considered, as it is defined in Gita, it is not Karma Yoga as such. Okay? If you're just being ethical, which is very good. Karma Yoga is a term which is meant when you have different aspects all clear. The first is, what is the purpose of karma? Okay? What is the purpose of karma in your life?
To help you learn the things you
Give you the opportunities to
experience.
to give you the opportunities to make this karma yoga, to carry it out.
No, if karma yoga is different from doing any karma, what distinguishes karma yoga from every other karma? And one thing is the purpose for which you are doing karma. Okay? So the purpose for which you are doing karma generally is that you have many desires and then you want to fulfill those desires and you engage in karma. This is how a normal person looks upon karma, as a means through which I engage in the world and fulfill my desires. Okay? Now, who is a karma yogi? The karma yogi is the one who understands that by just fulfilling desires, I don't get what I'm searching for. Okay? So this is where the whole focus comes to, where looking for solution which is not in a normal engagement of the world. And this is where you begin to what? Search for that freedom. This is what you call, that makes you a mumukshu. Mumukshu is the one who is now sure that I want freedom and my normal pursuits don't give me the freedom. Okay? Now then, this mumukshu has evolved a little bit further to figure out that what will give me that freedom if the normal pursuits don't give me the freedom. Okay? The second step is the person recognizes that the answer is in self-knowledge. Okay? Because if I'm basically limited, there is no solution. Okay? So therefore, the knowledge now is the main priority, self-knowledge is the priority. So the mumukshu evolves into a jignasu. Jignasu means gnatumichu, the one who wants to know the reality of oneself. Now, the next question is, if knowing the reality is the pursuit, why do karma? Okay? So now, the very purpose of karma changes, and the purpose of karma now becomes what? Personal growth. Personal growth, which is what we call self-growth, for the purpose of what? Self-discovery, which is knowing one's true nature. So this, once this is very clear, what is the position of karma in my life, then that's a first step to a person becoming a karma yogi. Okay? That means for everybody else, engaging in the world is what? I acquire things and I feel that through this acquisition, which is more and more or in some different direction, I'm going to solve my problem. That is something which is not true for a karma yogi. So therefore, you can be a highly ethical person, but your orientation can still be what? I'm engaging in the world and I'm trying to get as much as I can, but I'm going to what? Be as ethical as possible to get what I'm looking for. This is just an ethical person. You understand the difference? Do you understand the difference?
Yeah.
What is the difference?
There is no self-growth involved there. That is, it is
Exactly.
only for the material and the fact that he is living by dharma.
Excellent. Right? So this is
He's doing it in a very legal way.
Exactly.
But,
right.
not necessarily exploring himself.
Exactly. Right? So that is what is the difference. Now, the second, if you then want to use karma for your growth, how do you do it? Right? First I can say, okay, I want to now use my karma, not just for engaging in the world and getting more, but for my self-growth. The next question comes, okay, now what do you do then? Right? How do you then use karma for your growth? And this is where you use karma for your growth in two very fundamental ways. Because generally what happens is that karma, you engage in the world for getting more, and when things don't happen your way, what happens? Yeah, you get upset, you have anger, you have
Frustrated.
frustration, all kinds of reaction. So the first thing is to understand, if I want to use karma for my growth, I need to understand where I have a choice and where I don't have a choice. Because once I understand, what do? I make my efforts in the direction where I do have a choice and stop trying to change things where I actually have no control over. Because so much of our life is spent in brooding over things that we can't change and not making enough effort towards what we can do. Okay? So that means you need to, in order to do it right, you first need to know what I can change and what I cannot change, right? So this is where, it's the first way. So this is where the verse, Karmani eva adhikarahate ma phaleshu kadachana. It is not an advice, as I said, it is just a fact. The fact is, adhikaraha means eligibility, choice. I have a choice over karma and not over the result. Okay? So now if I have a choice over karma, then my next question is, how do I exercise this choice in a responsible manner? Okay? So this is where we had this whole big discussion on karma. Okay? We had a whole big discussion on dharma, which is making you see how important it is to incorporate dharma into your decision making. Okay. Now, that dharma itself, what we saw is, we call it universal. Universal because every human psyche understands what is right and what is wrong. Okay. But even though it is so, it is not something which is at times easy to interpret. Like Nazi's example, there are many grey areas because life is complex. There are many different variables and there are so many conflicting moralities and all. So you need to navigate your life, but what is then the criteria? Okay? If I am given the responsibility to interpret dharma, then I also should be given some kind of a framework to guide that choice So what is the thing that we saw a few criteria. Okay? One is one criteria we saw was what? The consequences of my action. Okay? What is going to happen? Sometimes lying could be more beneficial to people than not lying. Right? So we saw a very simple example of a Nazi, but this is a very common example that is used in even in the field of psychology. Okay? So this is something that we saw consequences of my action. Then the second criteria is my duties and responsibilities. Where am I placed? Okay? Sometimes you are placed in a situation where you can do many things, and sometimes you are not placed in a situation where you can do many things. So you have to figure out what is your place in the scheme of things in that situation. Okay? So this is where, it's not like everything you have to be either only proactive or just sit back. Every situation requires for different response on your side. So to give you a framework, the first one is what? The consequences of your action, duties and responsibilities. Then the third criteria is your own conscience. Okay? What is your conscience telling you? If you sometimes, even if it is not your direct responsibility, but if you really feel very strongly for that cause, and you feel that if you don't take enough actions, you will feel that you have not done enough, then go ahead, right? So this is the third thing. And there is no one answer. Please understand, whenever you need to interpret the dharma, these are the four criteria. And the fourth criteria is what we call pragmatism. Okay? Sometimes if you are overly idealistic, okay, and you just go by principle and you don't look at the environment and try to find a way where you can follow a dharma, but in a more kind of a subtle way where you don't disturb the environment, in fact, you can accomplish a lot more. Okay? I gave this example in my book, which actually started raising a lot of discussion because we started receiving a lot of email. Okay? The example was as follows. That there was this IAS officer, and he was posted in some, and this is a real example, by the way, right? This is what really happened. So we didn't want to say whether it is wrong or right, we just wanted to present it, right? And then the people were like, oh my God, how can you even give this example? So the example is that he was posted in Bihar, and in that office where he was working, everybody was highly corrupt. Okay? Now, he was very honest, and what happens is, if you're honest and everybody else is corrupt, and if everybody who's corrupt knows that you're honest, what happens? They don't like you. Really. They don't like you, and what do? They try to get you out. Okay? Because their jobs become at stake. Okay? So therefore, he immediately realized that he is in a losing game if he just starts fighting with his colleague. So he tried to figure out a way where he does not compromise his honesty, but not
Same time get into a
exactly, right? So he devised a way, because every public project that is being done, they all, they take bribes when they have to approve it or during the execution or whatever. So then, if he did not take, and if he asked everybody not to take, and if others were threatened to be reported, then he said, no, I could even be killed. So therefore, he said, okay, he kind of pretended as though he was also taking. Okay? Now, after taking, the next day, he would go and give it back.
I thought he might donate it somewhere.
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
He next day, he would give it back to that person and say, now, this money you donate. If I donate, then it may feel, oh, I've taken it anyway. Right, exactly. So he says, So he says, I don't want to actually make a decision, you donate, but I will help you to, let them choose whoever it is. And I will make sure that it goes there and it actually reaches the people that they deserve. So what happened is that for others, for his colleagues, he was just like one of them. But what he did was what? He was honest. He made sure that that money was used for the benefit of others. Okay? And at the same time, what? He was very, he made the person who was given the right, responsible, making some kind of a change by saying that I'm not going to take it, but now you use it for something which is beneficial.
But the point
So-
is, as a leader, he's actually allowing this happening in front of his eyes. Is that right or wrong?
So
No,
this
but
is
you
what I'm
can't
saying.
change everything
This is
immediately.
exactly. This is exactly. See, people, this is what dharma is, something which is, as I said, it
But
has
he was
four
not a leader.
aspects.
He was just one of the. He
Yes,
didn't
one.
have enough power to change it.
See, this is where the whole thing is. I'm not saying that it is right
You got
or
what?
wrong. What I'm saying is, there are situations where without compromising, you can find a way to stay honest and work towards greater good.
This is a very interesting thing because I have this conversation a lot in our life.
Yeah, exactly. Because most of the time, people view the situation as black and white.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like either you stay totally ethical and fight against everyone, in which case what happens? You yourself neither get benefited,
But then you know the
get anywhere.
consequences, the first thing you said, you've got to be aware of the consequences. And here, the consequence is not what
Negative.
it would, it's
Not
a
a
desired
desired
consequence.
See what happened? He gets thrown out and he would not have gone thrown out.
Exactly. Exactly. This is what I'm saying. When you please begin to look at dharma, we have this whole thing of this is black, this is white. Either you are at this end or you are at that end, and there is nothing in between. So the whole understanding of dharma, as we see it in whole Vedic thing, that there is a whole in between spectrum, okay? And you try to be as close to dharma as you can, but there is no such thing called absolute, because the whole world itself is relative, okay? Now whole world is mithya. In the relative world, there is no absolute. But that doesn't then mean that there is no dharma either. Okay? So you try to be as close to dharma as possible and be creative and find different ways, solutions in trying to what? Stay ethical and use that into greater good. Right?
When we were in the municipal hospital, we knew that the drugs that were there were not always of the best quality. Okay? Much as Amir Khan says, use generic, I would love to treat Amir Khan in KM hospital. So we knew that these were not always the best. So if you were ordering cefotaxime, it may not be the best, and sometimes it didn't work. So if I was really worried about a patient, I quietly asked a patient to go outside, buy it and bring it. Okay? Which was unethical. The drug is available, why am I making him spin? It was against the rules. If I got caught by the management, I would be in trouble. Okay? Because I'm supposed to use what is available in the ward. But if I want to save, it's a free hospital, so I'm not supposed to make the patient spend any money. But if I want to save his life, I know that that one's not going to work. I better ask for a better brand from outside. So what is my, should I be ethical? I should fight with the management and go and fight every day with the dean, say get better quality, better. What will the dean do? Tomorrow she'll throw me out of the hospital.
Yeah.
It's very easy to throw me
So
out.
the consequences.
So what
will
am I
not
benefiting anybody? No. So you
Exactly.
Excellent. Same. I'm so happy.
No, but there would be people who would say, I'll get thrown out of the hospital, but I will not adhere.
I know, but
Yes.
did I benefit any to a patient?
Who would
And
benefit
you can't
by
change
that?
But then you're not helping
Not
the-
helping
you're
the
not
patient.
helping
You're not
anybody.
helping.
So
She was
the
being.
role
But
of
there's
the doctor
also
is
the
lost.
truth of
Yeah.
that one person, there'll be another person who will fight, and a third, and eventually bring
So
about the
you
change.
do both simultaneously. You fight also, but you fight it at a level where you think you can win. You have to know that you will win. That's when you have to fight.
Exactly.
That's a good one.
You kind of, exactly. So simultaneously, if you really feel that you alone making a noise will not get you
After
anywhere.
that
So
power
then,
and the junior most times the horsemen who listen to me.
It's like Anvans, we used to in OT order extra syringes and needles, and maybe when from a affording patient who could afford, we would give them that you need this, and keep the extra so that we could use it for the unaffording patients. So, but the affording patients may say, ki, are you going to use 10 syringes and 10 needles? And affording is also relative, right? In that scenario, he was more affording than someone who just came from the road who was abandoned. We used to always have we had a stock like that in our lockers. And if someone came or an emergency or if it wasn't there, we immediately had it to take it out. In a way it was wrong because we were just taking it from
It's
somebody.
like Robin Hood.
Yeah, we were right that you need so many.
Yes.
And we used only 10%.
This is relatively
Exactly.
slightly more.
If you
It's
sold
all
it in the
relative.
market and got money, then that's a
I know.
different. Exactly.
But
See,
it
this
was from
is where
their angle, we were
absolutely
still giving
we were
them.
still exactly.
I mean, like
So,
on a
We were
larger
not
scale.
giving them a choice that do you want to buy two extra.
Yeah, we were
Yeah.
telling them we
You're not
That's what you
saying
should have done
towards
तुम्हारे पास
donation.
है.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you know, you wouldn't have gotten it.
We wouldn't have gotten it.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
And that's the reality.
Yeah. So this is where, I mean, one has to really shift from this extreme to this whole big spectrum, and within that you try to be as good as
Ethical as
possible
possible.
and
getting
also
results.
benefit others, you know. So that is something that we saw, and that is something which is very useful perspective. I think even Bela's and Sumita's, this is a very smart decision making. Okay? Because otherwise what happens is that we stick to principles and then we get nowhere, right? And we don't even benefit others. So that means if you really look at the final, what have you achieved? You haven't actually achieved anything. But if you do want to make some changes to the system, then in the long run you have to have a different strategy. Okay? And you have to work towards that strategy, but it is what? Step by step, until the time that something happens where you can actually challenge the whole system. But you alone challenging the whole system doesn't get you anywhere. Okay?
But your
So-
purpose was good, no? You said
Exactly.
the original
So your
thing, the
intention
purpose,
has to
your
be purpose.
intention
Your
is
intention, exactly.
And that even the
Right.
law is, right? To murder someone, if we prove that the intent was not to harm, you
Yes,
can get
yes.
away.
Yeah, so if you have a
So the plus
Yeah.
intent is important.
Yeah.
Exactly. So now, in the next, so that's what we saw, that when you have to do karma, then what? Dharma, but it is something which is subject to interpretation. It is not just black and white rule based. Okay? And when it comes to result, what did we see? That result is something which I must recognize that it is not in my hand. Okay? Not in my hand, what does it mean? It's not that I totally don't have any control over the result. But what we mean is that that result follows the laws of cause and effect. And that those laws of cause and effect connect the present with so many past variables that I don't have knowledge of all the different variables. Therefore, I cannot control the result. It's not that there is no relationship between my action and result. So I still have to continue to try to accomplish whatever I feel is necessary for me, but understand that the laws have a perspective which is much wider than my knowledge. So at times, things don't happen the way that I expect. So there are 4 types of results that we all have to come across in life. One is what? Equal to what we expect, more than what we expect, less than what we expect, and opposite of what we expect. There is no human being who has not seen all these 4. Right? Now, how do you have samatvam? Samatvam is not that, oh, I have to give you an advice and say, oh, be equal, be equal. That is something which is not possible. Okay? Imagine if there is a wedding and if there is a funeral, can you be exactly equal? It's not possible. Neither it is desirable. What is true is that the life presents many different situations and you have emotions which are corresponding to those events, right? You can't be the same in all situations. It's impossible. Neither it is possible nor it is wise. Okay? So therefore, we are not talking about being like a robotic and not having any response and always having kind of a one state of mind. We are not talking about that. What we are talking is that there is a response which is appropriate to that situation. Let's say you are a little bit sad, you are anxious. That is fun. I mean, it is going to be like that. It cannot be any different. Okay? But what is the range? What is the scale at which you are either that disappointment or sadness can really bring you down and you find yourself totally incapable of doing anything, or what? You can handle it and you can put it in perspective. Okay? So this is what, when we talk about samatvam, we are not talking about absence of emotions, absence of fear, absence of anger, total absence of sadness. Anytime any Vedanta or Gita teacher presents where there is absolute in terms of emotions, that person doesn't know what he or she is talking about. It doesn't exist. Okay? You ask a psychologist, they will say it is healthy to feel emotions. And all the different ranges of emotions are given to us and they have a purpose. Okay? So for example,
let me treat the two imposters just the same. Kipling poem, right?
yeah.
Yes.
So
It's a beautiful poem.
Yeah. If the world was
Yeah.
I can't remember the whole. Sorry.
So this is where in Bhagavad Gita there is a verse. He says, Sukheshu anudvikmanaha dukheshu vigataspruhaha. Okay? So that means it's not, there is absence of sukha and dukha, but what is my attitude? How do I deal with those emotions? That is what really counts. Either I can let those emotions what bring me either totally down or up. So that means I'm totally always on a roller coaster ride. When things happen my way, I'm like up, and when things don't happen my way, I'm totally down. If this is the case, then what? In life, how many situations happen exactly your way?
Not even.
So that means you're like really on an up and down ride. But here, how will you now learn to deal with it? It's not that, oh, I should not be, I have to have equanimity. It is just understanding how the world works. So this is where we focus on reality, adjusting my understanding with reality. Okay? What is the reality is that things are variable. Okay? And if I want to hold on to one thing that I like forever, is my thinking in keeping with reality? When the world is changing and I want everything to be stable, I'm what?
Deluded.
Yeah, I'm deluded. So that means if I want to let go my what disappointments, what do I need to do? I need to first understand how the world works and what? Readjust my thinking
Go for
in keeping with,
expectations.
yeah, exactly. Realign my expectations in keeping with what the world is and not what? Have this futile attempt to change according to what I think and what I expect. Okay? So that means I have to, in all these emotions that we have, if you really stay with your emotions and see how many implicit assumptions that you have behind those emotions which are loaded, you will find there are so many assumptions which are not in keeping with what is. Okay? And when you correct those implicit assumptions that you have in keeping with what is, you will automatically get a better perspective. Right? You don't need to tell yourself, oh, I should not. Shoulds and should nots is a big disaster. Because again, I continue to judge myself. First, I feel I should not feel sad, and then when I feel sad, then what? I'm no good because what? Or I'm not spiritual because I do feel sad. Okay? So we keep on adding complexes. We keep on giving ourselves names. Here, what we are doing is really re-understanding the realities and aligning our understanding with what is, in light of which all these things which will already automatically drop. Okay? Last time Barnaz was asking that even by understanding you will, I said yes, of course you will change, but that change is the most, it's the most difficult, but it's the only change which will last. Okay? Every other change will be momentary. Because if you have not re-understood and you are just trying to manipulate
All these self-help books which shall I do this, do
Yeah.
that, that's why they don't work.
that's why they don't work, and that's why you keep on buying new and new and new. Because if one book had solved your problem, you don't need to buy a second book. Right? And we always think there is some kind of a quick fix, there is some kind of a magic thing that will help me, there is some magic key. Or what? That I will find some way to kind of experience some kind of a light and and then I'll be totally
Now, also
free.
the self-help books tell you what to do, but they don't explain it like this.
Exactly.
I mean, you don't get to the bottom of the
You don't get to the
List
bottom of
do's and
things.
don'ts.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So this is where the only way that you can really help yourself is look into the assumptions. Next time you feel something and try to what? Readjust your and one thing I asked in my one class where I do and which can be all these young kids, right? So then we were analyzing sadness. So I said, okay, now analyze an emotion of sadness that we've all felt. Okay? Take one event that has happened in your life which has given you sadness. Okay? And analyze what are the different things that you were telling yourself. Think about it. Okay? People came up with amazing things, right? All these kids, they're not kids, they're in their early 30s. They said, yeah, there is first thing that there is this whole sense of entitlement. Okay? This, how can it happen to me? Okay? So that behind this is what?
An assumption that I am somebody great.
Exactly. An assumption that for me, this cannot be, right? So this is what this sense of entitlement. What is really your entitlement? Tell me.
Not entitled to
Really?
anything.
What do you say?
Everything. What is? Think about it.
Nothing.
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 Only to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no entitlement.
There is no other entitlement. Okay. And how do we live the world?
Everything.
It owes us, it owes
Yeah.
everything.
Either everything or that very fatalistic.
Exactly.
The opposite, the
Or the opposite.
extreme opposite.
Absolutely.
The victim.
Absolutely.
We are entitled to being the victim.
Absolutely. Right? So either when you think that this is all your entitlement, this is your right, this is what it is, in fact, nothing, right? And the other thing is, as Roshni says, is that totally fatalistic. Yeah, like, oh yeah, whatever happens, that is meant to happen. You don't even make enough efforts to get what you want. So these are the orientations that we have, which give us what? A lot of sadness. If I want to change that, what do I need to do? Change my orientation. There is no other, there is absolutely no other key to dealing with situations. I keep on re-understanding. The whole pursuit of Vedanta is re-understanding everything at all levels. Okay? One thing is the big reality, and second is what? Even within Mithya, there are so many realities which I need to understand. I can't just dismiss it as Mithya, saying that, oh, it is only as though, or it has a dependent reality. Because Mithya world is a highly sophisticated world which is governed by so many laws. Okay? And it is governed by my position with those laws. I need to get it right. I can't just ignore it. I cannot foo-foo it. Absolutely. Right? So this is where, this is the whole process of aligning your thinking in keeping with what the reality is the whole process. When you do that, then what? The reactions that you have automatically go away. Okay? So this is how you gain equanimity. Otherwise, equanimity just remains a pipe dream that nobody can achieve. Okay? So next time, stay with your emotions. Generally what happens is, if you're angry, if you're sad, or if you're feeling, when we are very young, we are kind of given this message that good girls and good boys don't get angry, or they are not like this, or they are not like that. So what do we think? Anytime we are angry, or we are sad, or we are feeling fear, what do? We sweep it under the carpet. Because it's just, you want to be the hero or heroine in front of your parents or the group of people. So that means everything what happens is gets swept under the carpet. Then it starts dictating you without you even realizing it. Okay? There is a conscious memory, and then there is this whole big unconscious memory which sometimes totally guides you. You're taken over. Okay? And this is why a lot of times people tell me that I had a friend who says, my mom, she says she had no causes, but all of a sudden she had deep depression. I said, No causes in the sense that there was nothing
Visible in the
immediate.
world.
Exactly.
No
No causes
precipitating
means
factor.
No
that
overtly visible.
absolutely. So that means in the past year there are no visible events which have taken place which kind of lead to that, but it is doesn't mean that it has no causes. Okay, it has deep causes which are all lying there. You don't even know, right?
Sometimes it happens that, actually a good event suddenly makes you depressed because suddenly your responsibilities are over. Now you have the luxury of talking to stress.
Yeah, exactly. So many things which are kind of under the carpet, they all start coming out. And this is something which is inevitable because the universe wants you to deal with it. Okay? You cannot just keep on avoiding it and keep on neglecting it. You need to, in order to get well, you need to deal with it. You need to address it. So therefore, next time any such emotion comes, then we all have, right? Stay with it. First acknowledge its presence, right? And stay with it and see now what are the assumptions. That work you have to do because unless you do that work, nobody can do that work for you. Okay? And write down the assumptions and see if those assumptions are reality or they are your own creation. Most of those assumptions will be what?
Is that how Vipassana works? Maybe that you actually get a chance required to address each one of
Which comes up.
Which comes up.
See, I don't know exactly what Vipassana does. I mean, a lot of it is just implicit. What Vedanta does is that we make it all very explicit. So
Bring
you
it
know what you're doing and why you're doing what you're doing, right? So it's not just a technique I'm telling you, okay, do this, and then different people may use it differently for different purpose, we don't know. Okay? But here, this is what we say. So that is the second thing, that equanimity that we get for while responding to different situations. Now, equanimity, when we say different situations, situations also include people. Okay? Because most of our problems are in what? Relationships, exactly. So that means when you have difficulty in getting along with somebody, then stay with that problem instead of avoiding it and see what's going on. Okay? That person's problem may be that person's problem, but you also have problems, right? There is no situation in which only the other person is at fault. That doesn't exist. Okay? There is something more, yes, of course, there can be different degrees. The other person can be a lot more responsible in that given thing than you are. That is a possibility, okay? But your assumptions are a lot of your own things that you add on to that problem.
Yeah, you've connected it to 10 previous.
Exactly, right? So therefore, that not getting along with anybody, also stay with that situation and see what irritates you about that person. Why is it that why can't you just leave that person's problem to them? Why are you carrying it within yourself? Okay? What is this whole in-person relationship? One of the things which leads to most of the problem is this wanting to control. Okay? The closer you are to the person, you want the person to be what you want that person to be. Okay? You have a long agenda for what that person should be. The person is going to feel stifled with a person who has a huge agenda. Nobody can relate to another person who has what? You should do this and you should be like this and good boys are like this and good girls are good husbands, good parents. I mean, there's this whole big list that you have created that nobody is even capable of fulfilling, that you superimpose all your needs, all your unfulfilled, everything you want. Put it on that person and you want the person to be like that. It's impossible. You will make yourself miserable and you will make the other person miserable. Okay? If you want to make a change in the other person, what will you do? What will you do? By telling, do this, do this, do this, you think the people are going to change?
You have to change yourself.
be the change you want to see.
First, you need to be the change that you want to see. That is one
you
thing.
react differently. You change your reaction to that person.
Exactly.
What we say in parenting, ignore the bad and praise the good.
See, yeah, I think again, any ignoring we don't advise.
Realign
Yeah, just
your
realign
expectations.
Yeah, realign your expectations, communicate. In communication, there are two aspects of communication which are very, very important. Okay, one is what we call advocacy, and the other one is inquiry. Okay, we fall into one extreme or the other. If we are a good listener, we keep on listening. We don't say enough what we think. Okay, or we keep on saying what we think. We don't listen enough. A good communication has both aspects. You have to say what you think and why you think what you think, and you have to be honest, okay? And you have to equally listen to the other person and see where he or she is coming from. Okay? And then explore. Then exploring together, spending time with people and exploring ideas is something which doesn't exist in today's society. We are like so busy either doing something or the other, or engaging with people in such a superficial manner, sitting and exploring ideas, okay, and thinking about things. Trying to refine our understanding further and further is something which just doesn't exist anymore. Helping each other to see things more clearly and that kind of a thing, this kind of a relationship we need to cultivate. That leisure, it requires inner leisure. Okay? We are so much doing oriented. Okay, now today's whole day is what? Checklist of all the different activities that we have to do. We don't give ourselves enough leisure to just be. Okay? And to spend time with each other without agenda. These are very, very important things, because if you want to improve your personal relationships, there is no self-help group or book that has solution. You have to do that job yourself. And for that, you really need to work on yourself, and you need to rethink about what is the purpose of relationships. Why within this world you are connected to a few people, right? And those different people that you are connected to evoke what? Different responses in you. It is like a mirror. If somebody is giving you pleasure, somebody is giving you difficulty, somebody is giving you anxiety, somebody is giving you worry, they are all giving you what? Different, they are invoking different persons in you. Now, with each one, what? You can stay and you can correct your what? Your wrong assumptions. The minute you start correcting it, you will see your interactions with everybody will change very, very profoundly. Very profoundly. But the focus is you, okay, and seeing your implicit assumptions and correcting them. So this is the key to this whole. I love that I keep using that example of Saket that you gave me. She gave me one example which I use very often now. That there was a puzzle and it was very complex, right? And it was very complex and it was very difficult to solve. And one child was given this puzzle and people thought that he could never solve it.
It was the whole world.
Whole world,
A map of the whole world. And this child
Exactly.
was annoying the father, so said, you know, take it and solve this. And he came back in a minute and he said, how did you solve it? He said, because I turned it around and there was a man, a human face. And once I fixed him, the world fixed itself.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Very beautiful.
Once I put him together, the world. Yeah.
Amazing metaphor. I love that metaphor. It's really nice. Okay. Now, the other thing which is very important, which is coming out in the next verse, we will see. We saw last time Arjuna had asked this question, right? Did we see that?
No.
We did this one 13 one.
13th we've done.
Again,
we did this one.
yeah, okay. So Arjuna, after having heard what is Karma Yoga, and he says, okay, now this is all very good, what makes it Karma Yoga, why you need it, and but he still has a very, very important question, okay? And the question is, we will redo this, just Arjuna Vacha, will you chant after me or no?
Yeah.
Okay. Arjuna Vacha,
Arjuna Vacha,
Jayasi Chet Karmanaste,
Jayase Chet Karmanaste,
Mata Buddhir Janardana,
Buddhi Janardana,
Tatkim Karmani Hode Mam,
Tatkim Karmani Bhore Mam,
Yojayasi Keshava,
Yojayasi Keshava.
So here he says, now I understood you talking about this whole knowledge and also karma and why karma yoga is important. Okay? But I still haven't understood one thing. Here he says, I generally understand very well that Jayasi Chet Karmanaste Mata Buddhir Janardana. Okay? That I understand that the final problem can only be solved by self-knowledge. Okay? And therefore, knowledge is much more important than karma. I understand. Okay? You are saying that karma is useful for self-growth, okay? But the karma that I have to do, Tatkim Karmani Ghore Ma Niyojayasi Keshava. Okay? This self-growth karma is changing of attitudes and doing things, re-understanding and everything. So here, but what I have to do is what? Very small thing. I have to fight the battle and kill so many people, right? And then you say that it is all for my self-growth, right? Because this whole karma yoga, we saw, how do you define the purpose of karma yoga? As something which will give me the opportunity to grow so that I can understand the knowledge. Okay? So here he says, how can this karma, fighting the battle and killing so many people, help me to grow? Yeah.
Very good question.
Help me to grow to what? Make me eligible for knowledge. Okay? So this is where Lord Krishna answers this question beautifully, and he says, now here we have to add Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Yagnathat Karmano Nyatra Lokoyam Karma Bandhanaha Tadartham Karma Kaunteya